Before everything changed, this was life in Britain in the 1980s. Slow, warm, a little bit broken, and completely unforgettable. The room is warm in a way you don't feel anymore. The kind of warmth that lives in thick curtains, gas fires, and radiators ticking like clocks. The telly hums. Someone adjusts the aerial. The picture twitches, then settles. There was always a smell. Gravy, dust, a hint of hairspray, maybe TCP. Every house had its own version, something that clung to school jumpers, lingered in coat hoods, and followed you through the week. The microwave sat proudly, rarely used. It was for special things, though no one ever said what. Dinner came from the hob, beans that bubbled too long, meat and 2 veg quietly expected, bird's custard, skin on top. The kettle boiled constantly, not out of need, just habit. A cup of tea was the answer to everything. Someone upset? Kettle. Something to celebrate? Kettle. Bored? Cold? Company coming over? Kettle. It never asked questions. It just did its job. Time moved differently, slower, fuller. No scrolling, no flicking, just waiting. Even boredom had a rhythm. Mornings moved slowly, but school always came quickly. 1 minute you were half asleep over soggy frosties, and the next you were at the gate, trying to flatten your hair and hoping no one noticed the scuff on your shoe. Uniforms never quite fit. Hand-me-down blazers with sleeves too long or shoulders too tight. Grey trousers. Skirts with pulled threads. Collars your mum ironed flat, only for them to curl again on the walk to school. The air inside school had its own mood. Chalk dust, cabbage from the dinner hall, and that sharp tang of disinfectant that clung to everything. Some corridors were warm and smelled like paper. Others echoed with shoes squeaking on industrial linoleum. Desks were wooden, carved with the secrets of kids who came before you. The blackboard stood like a monument. No screens, no tablets, just chalk, and a board rubber that would explode into dust if you touched it. Lessons blurred. Maths was dread and the smell of pencils. English was books with curled pages. Science was Bunsen burners and the faint hope of something catching fire. But it was between the lessons when school came alive, in playtime chaos, skipping ropes, British bulldog, banned and played anyway, half-inflated balls, pocketed conkers, arguments that flared and faded before the bell. Lunch was trays, mystery meals, warm milk in cartons, chocolate muffins on good days, and then out the doors and into the afternoon. Fashion started small, a pin on your jacket, a patch on your school bag, slightly crooked, a swipe of eyeliner when no one was watching. Little ways of saying, "This is mine." Hair reached for the ceiling. Tops swallowed your shoulders whole. Colours weren't just bright, they were declarations. Neon pinks, acid yellows, electric blues. You didn't wear them to blend in. You wore them to say something. Everything meant something. Rolled up sleeves, bangles that clicked when you moved, fingerless gloves in July. You didn't just get dressed, you assembled yourself. Some went glam. Lace gloves, crop tops, crucifixes. Others went punk, goth, new romantic, mod. You didn't need to speak. Your outfit already had. You didn't tap a screen and wait. You went somewhere. To the high street, to the precinct, shops where people knew your name. You knew the prices. 20 pence for a Mars bar, 10 pence for crisps. You did the maths in your head before you left the house. The choosing was half the joy, and Woolworths was everything. That first breath of sugar as the doors opened. Pick and mix in paper bags, cola bottles and fizzy cherries chosen like treasure. You wandered with friends, comparing prices, planning, longing, window shopping counted. You didn't need to buy to believe, and when you couldn't afford it yet, you circled it in a catalogue. Argos, Littlewoods, K's. Catalogues weren't just books. They were wish lists. Christmas, birthdays, someday. Holidays didn't start with tickets, they started with a list, scribbled by your mum, tucked in her bag. Cling film-wrapped sandwiches, bin bags instead of suitcases. If it fit in the boot, it came. The drive was part of it. You got up in the dark, tired but buzzing, pyjamas under your coat, blanket on your lap, crisps before 9 a.m. The car smelled like seatbelt plastic and cassette tapes. Your dad never asked for directions. Your mum said he should. Around hour 2, you stopped asking if you were nearly there and just watched the world blur by. Trees, pylons, thatched roofs, a horse if you were lucky. Arrival came with a whoosh, a caravan, a tent, it didn't matter. You were somewhere else. Butlins, pontins, windy beaches, ice cream in the rain, sand in your socks. You wore shorts whatever the weather. You swam, even when the water hurt. And then home again. Same car, same roads, but quieter now. Someone always said, "Same time next year?" And somehow you always said yes. Not everything in the 80s glittered. Behind the mixtapes and neon socks, something simmered, a low, constant hum, like the telefuzz after it signed off. You didn't understand most of it, but you heard grown-ups lowering their voices, streets that felt heavier somehow, shops that closed and didn't open again. There were strikes, protests, angry faces in the paper. It felt, sometimes, like the country was split in two. Bright shopping centres with glass lifts and piped music, and high streets full of shutters and rain. Some had suits and filofaxes, others stood in queues and lit cigarettes with their last match. But still there was music. There was always music. People turned it up louder. You could hear it through the walls. Party in one flat, protest in the next. Punk, soul, reggae, synth pop. Songs that fought back. Songs that clung to joy. People linked arms, stood in rain. You didn't always know why, but you felt it. That charge in the chest, that rising, that knowing. And through it all the kettle boiled, the telly played, the tape clicked on. Ordinary life folded around the noise. Protest and pudding, headlines and home. It wasn't separate. It never is. It was just life. Isn't it funny how a decade lives in your body like a muscle memory? A smell, a flicker of wallpaper, and you're 7 again, or 12, or just someone you thought you'd forgotten. There's no big ending, no credits, just the sense that time hasn't vanished, only folded itself into a case somewhere, labelled in your own handwriting, cracked, fuzzy, still playable, if you're gentle, because memory isn't sharp. It warps like a well-loved tape, the edges dulled, the sound dipping now and then, but the melody's still there, and when you need it, it finds you. The best moments weren't the big ones. They were smaller than that. The way carpet felt under your knees, the sound of your Walkman clicking open, the voice calling you to dinner just when the game got good, the flicker of streetlights outside your window as you fell asleep. That's what stays, not the headlines, not the milestones, just this. The feeling, a song you don't remember learning, but one you still know by heart. The song's still playing if you listen hard. It always was.